Hey, Jasmine, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good myself. First of all, let me welcome you to Namick Atlanta's Coffee Talk. It's been a while since we've taped any, and so I'm excited to have you on board, Jasmine. You ready?
I'm ready as ever as I can ever be.
Yeah, okay. Well, so let's get the particulars out the way, right? So, Jasmine, you are at News Corp, that global media and information systems behemoth. And right now, your current role as Senior Vice President, you are actually the global head of finance transformation. If I remember correctly, News Corp is doing roughly around 10-ish billion in revenue,
Yes,
maybe market cap of around 14, 15 billion. So
that's
not a small organization by any stretch. And you have a big, heavy footprint in the financial transformation. The difference between saying we made a little bit of money, but sorry, you can never say a little bit of money with $10 billion, right? We made a lot of money or we made a heck of a lot of money, right? But seriously, when we look at what you're doing there, you are responsible for an enterprise-wide transformation. You're bringing in that digital view of finance, helping them shift towards, if I remember correctly, a common model over 7 core global businesses.
that's right.
All of that right there speaks to me heavily of A, you're smart as a whip, and B, if I look back at your history, I've seen a series of transformation, digital transformation. How did you become an expert in transformation?
Well, funny you say I'm an expert in transformation. I don't think it was ever intentional. It was more ad hoc. So I think over the years, even prior to News Corp, I think since I was young, right, from my young days in a career, I think I take a job, I get in, and I think within the first week, I'm trying to figure out what is it that I can do in this job that can make the role better. What is my value add to make it, to uplift it and take it to the next level? I think that's organically, and that's what transformation is. Transformation is taking what you have and how do you actually uplift it and make it better, more resilient, stronger for the future. And technology, unfortunately, no matter how we look at it, technology is always a part of that equation today.
Okay, so I can hear that when you say this is what you personally look and how you personally feel about these things, right? But
Right,
you're a leader in your space, right?
right.
People don't like to go on journeys that aren't comfortable. How did you, from your leadership style, get people to have a willingness to take that journey with you?
I think it requires a lot of collaboration, right? So I think from the very, I go into any organization, and this is from my pharma days to my utility days to my media days. And I think inherently, not only did I move throughout the organization, but as I moved throughout the organization, for me, the white space is you have people in the markets who complain about headquarters. You have headquarters people complaining about the markets, right? You have the IT folks complaining about the finance, and the finance folks complain about HR. Everyone complains about each other when you put them in a closet, right? And what I realized is actually by bringing people together, you can actually solve the problems that they're all complaining about versus conceding to those problems and going back and just complaining. So I think like as I've been doing this, that's a large part of what I do. Is I like to bring people together in a safe spot and hear them out and then figure out, okay, if you're complaining about this, if this is your problem and this is your problem, is there something that we can do that can alleviate from both of you from your individual problems?
It sounds so simple in theory, right? But so hard in practice. I mean, yes, bring people in the room together. That's easy. Getting them to open up, getting them to share, getting them to see a common goal, and then having them execute on it, and putting a feedback loop to make that happen even better as time goes on, iterative. That right there to me is your secret sauce, right? Because you don't make it to senior vice president of any large organization, multi-billion organization, without being able to have that secret sauce about you. So, Stranjay, to you on that. Now, let me ask you a question, because transformation being one of the key themes around you, we've had a lot of transforming we've had to do over the last couple, almost few years now, right? With COVID. How has your management style transitioned through all of the crazy that we've been going through?
So I think a few fold, right? So if I look at over the last couple of years, no matter what industry you go, wherever you go, there is no more 5 days of working from home. Sorry, not 5 days. Apologies. 5 days of going into the office, right? There is
Okay, okay,
no,
okay.
yes, I got that reversed. So there is no 5 days of going into the office anymore. So hybrid working is a reality. But as a transformation leader, when you're constantly trying to innovate and drive change, driving change over Zoom, winning the hearts and minds of people over Zoom is almost near to impossible. Right? It's very, very difficult. So I think we've done a few things, right? So one, I think getting a bit more clever on how we do engagement sessions over Zoom and bringing people together to workshop, solution things out, hear them out. We've gotten more creative over that. It also has it requires a lot more patience and a lot more of, listen, you can put someone into a physical in-room workshop for 8 hours, but you can't do that on Zoom anymore. So
Yeah.
how do you start breaking things up to be a little bit more bite-sized? And then personally for me, because I personally am passionate about it, and as a transformation, I think one thing that I went ahead and did is I strongly do believe that everyone needs hybrid working environments, or you need to have travel. You do need that interpersonal physical connection, at least in this day and time, because you don't have the VR, the virtual reality, the technology hasn't kept up to space. So there is a little bit of a disconnect in a virtual world. But what I have done is that, listen, my teams need to work virtually. They need to do hybrid. So while giving them that flexibility, I have actually personally started coming into the office a bit more so that at least that's my personal choice to be that constant for my team, to know that, yes, if they choose to come in one day in the office, or if they choose to do this, then they know that I'm here for them to as a sounding board.
No, that's actually pretty good. That's amazing. So let me ask you this, because a lot of individuals I speak with, especially when they get to these senior roles, they say, hey, I'm at that stage in my career where, the work is great, the pay is awesome, but I also feel like I want to get back, right? And so you mentioned something earlier when we started talking about bringing people together. So there's a networking function that obviously goes into that. So if you walk me through in your career how valuable networking has been, and then I have a couple of follow-up questions after that.
I mean, it's extremely important, right? So ironically, just this past month, so there's two things, right? So firstly, in that virtual world that we were all adapting to, I made it a point to schedule time out of my day every month to make sure that, yes, I was attending at least X number of networking events, thought leadership conversations, and making that part of our job, right? And being more disciplined about it, so that we don't lose that connection. And then most recently, I just came back from my first conference where I did go back, that I did speak at, and it was live. And in the transformation space in particular, time and time again, I find that it's very important to talk to other stakeholders and other peer groups, both as tech providers and also other organizations, change agents, leaders, to see how their change journey is evolving, how their solutions are evolving, because you need to know what's out there, what's the art of possibility when it comes to the tech space, but what are the growing trends, right? So one of the growing trends that I'm now seeing, which validates, right, when you're in these conversations, is the line between technology and the line between transformation offices are getting very blurry, right? So
Okay.
right. And so that's actually quite reassuring, because I see that in my own organization. And when I speak to my peer groups, it's a validation on whether we need to change course or whether we're experiencing is actually quite common and pervasive across the board.
Okay, I can get that. Now, did you climb this ladder all on your own, or did you have any mentors or sponsors that helped you along the way? And if the answer is yes, how do you give back?
So when it comes to mentoring, all throughout my career, I've always looked for that manager or that peer group. So I think, so it's all about relationships at the end of the day, right? So no matter where I worked and who I worked for, I made it a point of building that relationship that's more long lasting, right? So it wasn't just about the job, and it just wasn't about that project or that initiative or that task at hand, but building my own personal brand and my credibility and my reputation, which I think strengthens and adds to those professional and personal relationships that you can tap into. So all throughout my life, in every career, because that's a transformation. I always say that, look, when you're a transformation expert, you're always the orphan child in an organization.
That's
So,
true.
so, so I think, but still, like having that credibility and having that brand and leveraging peer groups and managers and colleagues, cross-functional, of people that you can tap into to leverage and learn. So that I definitely did. And then secondly, what I also did most recent in the last few years is I recognized that over the years, and this is something that I wish, there's no playbook, right? I sort of just came across it. But what I also realized as I was moving up in my career, that was equally important to go in and invest in a proper coach who will also help and guide you and keep you honest, right? Keep you honest and help you work through the bumps of the road and see things that you may not be seeing, and continue growing and learning. So I think growing and learning never ends.
Yeah. No, awesome.
Yes.
I see the energy that you have, right? I feel in some cases I feel like I'm looking in the mirror because people are like, oh, in these interviews, sometimes John, you're moving around, and I can see I'm like Jasmine is over there bobbing and weaving. But Jasmine, that tells me something. That tells me you're passionate about what you're talking about, right? It tells me that you believe sincerely in what the message that you're bringing forth. But I want to get another sense of passion from you. What are you passionate about when you leave this work world away and you say, all right, I'm home, and if when all else is being equal, I want to exercise my passion. What is that?
Yeah. So, passion, it's twofold, right? If I as I exit, just picking up from our last comment, as I exit from my professional world, it's one of the brands that I believe my team will always call me out on is I genuinely want to help them continue learning, right? And learning and building that passion. So that's one part of it. But then as I get outside of the professional world completely, I would say time and time again, my family has really been my passion, right? So, and this is a reflection, as a woman, and as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, we play several different roles. And I think in my career, because of my commitment to my family and every decision that I have made, I've always made it with that with the mind that my professional decisions do not put my family second. Right?
Okay.
So I've always put my family first and continue to do that. And if that means that professionally I'll move a little bit slower, then be it, right? I've accepted that, but I would never compromise my family.
That's good. Well, we're about to wrap up, but I have one more for you. It's Women's History Month. Who's that go-to woman that when you think about, history, and it could be personal, it could be, famous, it could be historical. Who's that person that you identify with the most when you start thinking about Women's History Month?
When I think about Women's History Month, I mean, luckily we have a number of leaders and role models in the professional space that get a lot of publicity that I really enjoy, and I love reading up on their personal stories to see how they got there and what enabled them to achieve their stars. But if I step back, I think the one woman in my life that I remind myself, it's my own mother, right? So no one else may know her, but I do know, I always step back and I look at, my mother is a trailblazer for her own generation, first-year immigrant, came to this country when she was 20 years old, and everything that she has done and never given up and continues to fight forward. I think that's where I picked a lot of my traits up and look at her going, look, if she was able to accomplish this with no support, with no backing, why can't I move forward and do the same?
I love that. There we go. So our time is up. I will say this, as we start to look, and we are talking about Women's History Month, and we look at all of the things you're doing and at the level that you're doing it at and the consistency that you've been doing it for, I wouldn't be shocked if you had individuals in classrooms who are saying, here's a picture of who my women's history, champion is. So, great work. Keep on doing what you're doing. And as time goes on and you have, that ability to continually, grab a person and push them forward through sponsoring, mentoring, and the continual networking that you're doing from bringing people together, keep it up. It's awesome. It makes individuals grow, and that's about all we can do with ourselves as time goes on, is to leave Earth, the place, right, better than how we came in. So I applaud you on that.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I really like your lasting comment, because as a woman and a woman of color, and a first-year immigrant, like when I start looking through those, I keep reminding my girlfriends and myself that whenever we hear that someone first became the first judge or became the first this or became the first that, it's not the first, it's the first, but it's not the last, right? Because with each rock and that we push down, all it does is the people behind us becomes easier for them to knock down more rocks and more walls on the way and push forward. So it's just a progression of society, and I think we owe that to each of ourselves.
Thank you. I'm going to leave that as the final word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy you.
Take care.
Take care.